Hi and welcome to this, our fourth shot in a series of managing of temporary works. In this presentation we're going to go through the duties of the duty holders within the temporary works process. Within temporary works there's a number of stakeholders and duty holders who play key roles within the project. Within BS 5975 there's a number of key roles which are identified and explained who are critical to implementing temporary works within a project. This starts with a designated individual who is at the top of the responsibility for all temporary works within the project. They designate the individual roles below them and make sure that they are current and competent in their role. They prepare and manage the procedures and policies for the temporary works within the project. The principal designer is responsible for all elements of the design within the temporary works and permanent works part of the project. He is responsible for making sure that the designers are current and competent in their role and that are implementing a design in line with the design brief. The temporary works coordinator works for the designated individual. He is responsible for the management of all temporary works on site and makes sure that they are implemented in line with the temporary works design brief and that the designs are implemented in line with the environment. The temporary works supervisor normally works at the contractor level and works directly for the temporary works coordinator. He makes sure that the elements of the project within his part of the site are implemented in line with his delegation from the temporary works coordinator. He makes sure that the design is implemented in line with the environment it is situated in and that the method statements and inspections are carried out. The temporary works designer works for the principal designer. He designs all elements of the temporary works to support or enable the permanent works to go ahead. The temporary works design checker is part of the temporary works design process. He is there to check the temporary works design and make sure that it's suitable within line with the design brief and it meets all the required British standards. Temporary works have a number of stakeholders and duty holders within the process. BS 5975 outlines a number of key roles within the temporary works procedures. The top of these is the designated individual. Each organisation should have a designated individual who prepares, manages and organises the procedures for the temporary works within the project. Projects could have multiple designated individuals. They normally have a principal contractor's designated individual who is in charge of the temporary works for the project. Each of the subcontractors can have their own designated individual who is responsible for making sure that all parties within the temporary works procedure are current and competent within their roles. The designated individual ensures that the contractors have the required temporary works procedures in place, formally appoints and allocates temporary works contractors their duties in writing, ensures that the temporary works have sufficient resources to fulfil their role, and controls and communicates the requirements and actions within the temporary works procedures to the key stakeholders. The temporary works coordinator is appointed by the designated individual in writing. He is given his set duties within his appointment. These normally include the coordination of all temporary works activities on site, to ensure that a temporary works register is established and maintained, to ensure that the various responsibilities have been allocated and accepted by the temporary works supervisors, ensure that the design brief is prepared with a full consultation and is adequate and in accordance with the actual situation on site and the environment it meets. It ensures that any residual risks identified in the design stage, assumed methods of construction or loading constraints identified by the designer of the permanent works are included within the design brief for consideration by the designers. He also ensures that a satisfactory temporary works design is carried out in line with the environment of the site and the requirement of the temporary works design brief. He is also required to ensure that the design check is carried out by someone who is not involved in the original design. This should include the concept, the structural adequacy and compliance with the design brief. This check is normally carried out by the temporary works design checker. Where appropriate, he ensures that design is made available for other interested parties, be this the permanent works designer or other contractors or subcontractors who may need to interact with the permanent or temporary works. He registers and records all the drawings, calculations and other relevant documents related to the final design. He also ensures that those responsible for the on-site supervision receive full details of the design, including its limitations and any guidance notes associated with it, and that they have prepared a specific method statement for the implementation of them works. He also ensures that the checks are made at the appropriate stages throughout the project to make sure that the works are implemented safely. The Temporary Works Coordinator is also responsible to ensure that any proposed changes within the material or the construction are checked against the original design and appropriate action is taken. They are to ensure that agreed changes, corrections to faults are correctly carried out on site. They are to ensure that during the use of the temporary work all the appropriate maintenance are carried out. After final checks, which if satisfactory, ensure that a permit to load bringing into use is issued by either the Temporary Works Coordinator or, if competent and qualified, the Temporary Works Supervisor, issued formal permission for loading and bringing into use of the piece of temporary works. When it has been confirmed that the permanent structure has gained its adequate strength or is stable, they must then ensure that the permit to unload or take out of use the temporary works is issued by either the Temporary Works Coordinator or the Temporary Works Supervisor, if currently competent. They ensure that all documentation for safe systems of work is in place and implemented for the dismantling of any temporary works. They ensure that any relevant information for the health and safety file is transmitted to the principal designer for recording. And in all cases, they are to ensure that the Temporary Works Supervisor are operating in accordance with the approved procedures set out by the Temporary Works Coordinator and the designated individual. The Temporary Works Supervisor is appointed by the designated individual and reports directly to the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator. Where appropriate and they are appointed, they assist the Temporary Works Coordinator in the supervision, control and checking of temporary works on site. They can be authorised to issue permits for loading and unloading, so putting into use and taking out of use temporary works, if the designated individual of the organisation and the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator are satisfied that they are current and competent in providing this role. This can only be authorised if the risk in the project is deemed as low or very low within Table 1 of BS 5975. The Temporary Works Supervisor is provide on-site support to the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator for the control of his and her temporary works, so the works allocated directly to them. The Temporary Works Supervisor's main duties, where appointed, are to liaise and coordinate and cooperate continually with the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator, to assist the Temporary Works Coordinator in running the site Temporary Works Register and temporary works in accordance with the approved project temporary works procedures, to check temporary works design information issued by the temporary works designer prior to installation and use and load on-site, plus raise issues as necessary to the temporary works coordinator, to supervise, erect, use, maintain and dismantle all temporary works in line with the temporary works design and briefs. So conduct the required checks at the appropriate stages during the temporary works erection, installation, use and dismantling stages as per the temporary works design brief and in line with the direction from the temporary works coordinator. Carry out and supervise planned maintenance of temporary works. Identify any changes, modifications to the temporary works from the envisaged design's use or the environmental conditions that may affect it. In other words, if anything changes on site, they are to report it to the Temporary Works Coordinator to be incorporated into the design. Changes must be brought to the attention of the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator and the designer if appropriate. Carry out any final check prior to the use of the temporary works. And in the event of an inspection reveals discrepancies between the certificated temporary works design and the construction of the temporary works, issue a notice to prevent the loading or unloading until rectified to a satisfactory standard by the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator. On completion of any final checks, the Temporary Works Supervisor, if authorised to do so, can issue a permit to proceed. A copy of this permit must be given to the contractor and provided to the Principal Contractor's Temporary Works Coordinator to record the activity. When confirmed that the permanent structure has attained the acquired strength or stability, and if the Temporary Works Supervisor again is authorised, another permit can be issued to unload, take out of use, to the contractor, and again a copy must be provided to the principal contractor's temporary works coordinator. Where the temporary works supervisor is not authorised, permits to load and unload must be controlled by the principal contractor's temporary works coordinator. So, this was a basic introduction to the management of temporary works. Within your units, we advise you discuss how temporary works are being implemented and are the correct procedures being conducted in line with BS 5975. We hope you enjoyed this presentation and look forward to seeing you in the next one.